Mr. Ward, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Margaret. Really glad to be here and have this opportunity. My name is Brandon Ward. I'm running for District 2 City Council because I care a lot about Framingham, this community, and the people that live in it. I had the opportunity to grow up in Framingham. My family moved here when I was in the 4th grade, and Framingham was the third city I lived in 3 years, the third state I lived in 3 years, the third elementary school I was going to. And when I showed up in Framingham, I found a real community, a community that embraced me, and a community that I still call home to this day. Part of the reason I care so much about this community is because of the incredible diversity, the access to opportunity, but also the many challenges that mirror the challenges that our country faces this day. And so there's a real opportunity to have a lot of impact. 5 years ago, I moved to the Saxonville area with my wife, Lindsay. And since moving to Saxonville, I've become increasingly more involved in our community, in community organizations and city organizations. And that's work that I hope to continue on the city council. I care deeply about education, public schools, but also our vocational technical schools. I've spent the last 2 years serving on the Keefe Tech School Committee. I care deeply about supporting quality of life improvements in Saxonville. So that's park upgrades, trail upgrades, community events, and that's work I've done for the last 3 years as a member of the board of Friends of Saxonville, and the last year as the board president. And I care deeply about making city government more inclusive, more welcoming, more transparent, and to get community leaders involved. And so that's the work I do now as the executive director of Leadership Metro West, is giving people the skills and the ability to be actively involved in their community. And so I'm asking for your vote to support me getting elected to city
15
council.
seconds.
To continue to do that work. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Mr. Silk, you have 2 minutes for opening statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having this forum, and thank you everybody who's attended. I really appreciate your time. The reason I'm running for office is because I really care about Framingham, and I care about the direction of District 2, and I want to see a lot of good things happen. I think there's a lot of good ideas out there. Through the years paying attention to Framingham politics, I've definitely heard a lot of positive statements, good ideas, things that need to get changed, things that need to get fixed, and I just want to see them happen. And I think that it's really important to have a person in Framingham government that's going to advocate for District 2 and that's going to advocate for the changes that you want to see. And I want to be that person that can help you get there. And I've lived in Framingham in District 2 since 2004. My wife and I, when we were looking for a house, we were driving through the neighborhoods. And when we started driving into our neighborhood, we had a lot of children wave at us. And that was an indication to us that we found the right spot to be. I had been up and down the East Coast in my time in the Navy and lived in a lot of different communities. And this was a telltale sign to us that we needed to, choose Framingham, and we did. And after doing that, I've lived through both good and bad experiences with the local government. I think there are a lot of positive things that are happening, but there are also some frustrations, and those frustrations are the things I want to help solve. So, that's really what I'm looking to do as your representative on the city council. I'll work with everybody. I'll work with everybody to make District 2 a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silk. We'll now move on to the question and answer portion of our forum. You'll have 90 seconds to answer each question, and we will start with Mr. Silk. What are the most important challenges facing your district, and how do you propose to address them? 90 seconds.
Thank you. There's actually a lot of good things for District 2. I think we're in a good spot. We have a lot of good neighborhoods and a lot of good people, which is very encouraging. Some of the challenges that we're facing for Framingham government specifically is just getting action on items. Everybody's identified traffic issues through Saxonville as an issue, and the government's aware of it, but we need to have action in there. We need to have items in the budget to get that fixed. And that's really what I'm going to be pushing for is, how can we solve the problems that everybody knows about now. Some of the other things, the Athenaeum, the firehouse, and the pump station on Watson Place have sat idle. We lost the library and it became a government office, but the input from the neighbors was limited on that move. And there's a lot of just encouraging businesses to keep investing in Saxonville. I think we have a great business community in Saxonville. I'd like to see more investment from them and from other people into the business community. Make sure that when we do improve the roads, that we don't hurt the businesses that exist already. And just make sure the education that we're giving our kids is a high quality and that the kids can actually get to the school. We're having a busing issue right now in Framingham, and I really wanted to see that fixed and the families of District 2 able to
15 seconds.
Able to get the transportation that they need so that they continue on with their lives and keep a work schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Ward, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure, thank you.
What are the most important challenges facing your district, and how do you propose to address them? 90 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think the most important challenges facing District 2 are not that different from those facing our city more broadly. And for me, those are education, access to quality education, and the delivery of it in our schools, and then also affordability within our community. So on the education front, Sean just recently mentioned this, but busing is a huge issue. So, and it's an equity issue. Like, what access do people in our community have to schools to be able to be there on time? And so working with the city government and the school committee to solve that is a huge issue for me, and one that I look forward to working on. I also think quality of education and, funding in our classrooms. So student teacher ratios. I think post-COVID and post-pandemic, behavior and socio-emotional supports have been should be a real priority for Framingham Public Schools, and I look forward to supporting that. On the affordability front, I think the Framingham I grew up in was always a really affordable community in the greater Boston area, and I'm not sure, or I think it's running the risk of no longer being so. And so working on the city council to support smart redevelopment of underutilized properties, allowing for more affordable housing, giving access to public transit are all really important. And then lastly, I'll just say traffic is a huge issue. Working to fix McGrath Square and the Danforth Street turn are priorities that I've been working on with Friends of Saxonville, and I look forward to working on the city council.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question. We'll start with Mr. Ward on this one. For years, Framingham's bodies of water have been declared unsafe to swim in. How will you address this issue and ensure residents have access to clean water? Mr. Ward.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's one that can't be solved unilaterally by the city. It's going to require a lot of partnerships with state entities as well. And I'm thinking specifically here about Saxonville Beach, which is one of the 3 Framingham beaches, but the one that affects just District 2 the most. And working with DEP and DCR to make sure that body of water is appropriately treated and able to be open for our community is not going to be a unilateral thing. It's going to require partnership. I think there are ways, and I know the city council has been discussing this recently around restricting how we allow residents to use fertilizer and other lawn treatments that could be restricted and could potentially have long-term benefits in terms of rainwater runoff and the quality of our bodies of water. And so those are things that I'm all interested in looking in and supporting. Ultimately, though, I think it's going to be a growing issue, and it's why I'm very supportive of splash pads and other public entities where
15.
we can give our families and our community access to water and to different amenities, especially during the hottest months of the year. So I know that's something that's in the works for it's been discussed with the Mary Dennison Park remodel, and so we look to support that more.
Thank you. Mr. Silk, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. When I was working with the Planning and Zoning Committee subcommittee, this was actually an issue that came up, and the city did pass upgrades needed for the drainage systems around the bodies of water in Framingham to help improve just the quality of the water flowing into the lakes and into the rivers. And I think that we need to follow up on that. That's very important. I also, one of the things I read is that the warming environment is actually a big problem for this, because the lakes themselves are actually getting warmer, which is increasing the growth of algae and other, small plant life in the lakes themselves, which is causing a lot of the problems. So we need to have an effort, in Framingham to help reduce carbon emissions, to help keep global warming at bay, and do our part. We're not going to solve the problem, but we should definitely do our part. We need to look at fertilizer and, see how much of that is run off into the lakes. And if it's a big problem, we need to possibly lessen, restrict it. And again, just continue with the sewer upgrades to make sure that we're catching a lot of material before it goes into the lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silk. We'll start with you on the next question. What is the first issue you plan to address if elected, and how will you do it?
Thank you. So just the natural cycle of the city council, we're going to be dealing with the budget and with the charter review. And those are the two really pressing issues that are coming up. So I'm going to really be focused on finding ways to incorporate Saxonville's issues into the budget, and make sure that, if we need the redesign for McGrath Square, that money is in the budget and that we are paying for it as a city. And I also want to make sure that when the charter comes up for review, that your voice is heard. District 2 has input into that, because I think it's important that people have a say in how their government is run. And my job really will be a customer service job for you. I will be representing you and making sure that you have the government that you want. So those are the two really pressing things. And just by, again, the natural cycle of the city council is going to be the budget and the charter review that are going to be coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Thank you. So I think the thing that's going to be the largest priority for me when I first get on the city council is finding ways for more voices to be involved in the conversation. I think since Framingham has become a city, it's brought a lot of really incredible opportunities and assets. It gives Framingham a seat at the table for important state level conversations, especially around funding, around getting support and access from state departments and the governor. But one thing we've lost is the ability to have our citizens have a say in how things are done in a more instrumental and integral way. And so when I say that, I'm thinking specifically about the budget process, about the financial decisions we're making and how we're funding different departments. I'm thinking about it a little bit in terms of who has a say on different advisory boards and advisory committees to the city. And just more broadly, giving people clearer and more intentional opportunities to have their voices heard. I've been doing a lot of that work for Friends of Saxonville through our annual meeting and other opportunities to get Saxonville voices involved in their community. And I'm looking forward to doing more of that. I do think, one thing we've been doing that a lot around is the McGrath Square rebuild project, and that's going to be a huge priority for me and for Saxonville in the next year or two.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Mr. Ward. And since someone brought this up, it's a good time to ask it. A full review of Framingham's city charter is underway. What is the one thing you would like to change about the current charter? Mr. Ward.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I don't want to repeat exactly what I just said, but I think it's the most important aspect of the charter that could have the most have the largest impacts and the largest positive impacts, which is getting more voices involved in the finance subcommittee and the finance process. And so this is making concrete changes to how we conduct that process. And I know in past years, and last year specifically, the process gets rushed because of the timeline that's been set out in the charter, and finding ways to maybe move that process forward a little bit, elongate the process, give citizens and important community organizations more of a heads up when different departments and different funding issues are coming up, is one that I think is really imperative, so that we get more eyes on the budget decisions and more community input. And so that's the one change that I'm really interested in seeing and looking forward to supporting.
Thank you. Mr. Silk, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So I've been actually watching the charter review committee meetings closely, just to see what ideas already come up, and there are a lot of good ones out there. So I was interested. There's a question right now of how the recommendations are going to be handled by the city council and what will go to the voters, what won't. So that is of interest to me right now. But one of the things that I really technical point is going to be the budget timeline, and just making sure there's enough time for everybody to give input that wants to give input, because right now it feels rushed and you get a lot of the same standard presentations, but I feel like sometimes we can get more citizen input into the budget. And I think, again, the budget is very important, because that's what you pay for is what you get a lot of the time with the city. And just looking at balance of power again through the charter is going to be important to me, is making sure that power isn't concentrated too much on one side, on the city council or the mayor's side, but make sure that there's an equal balance, so that way all ideas are heard and all ideas have a chance of flowing through, and no one feels steamrolled through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Mr. Silk. Housing prices and rent are astronomical in Framingham. As city councilor, what will you do to address this issue?
Thank you. Housing prices are a big problem in Framingham. Framingham is a community that was built on middle-class housing and middle-class people being able to afford a house here. And a lot of my friends and people that I've known throughout my time here in Framingham have had to move outside to afford a nice place to live or a nice house. And Framingham is building a lot of apartments right now, but apartments don't substitute for home ownership. So Framingham really needs to look at tiny homes or smaller lot sizes in certain areas, but those need to be planned well. They need to, it would be nice to have walkable communities with tiny homes so that amenities are right there, and the house is close to everything that you would need, so you don't need to worry about where the car is going to be in traffic. So I think that really we need to look at all options, but tiny homes would be something that I really hope that we explore. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Housing prices and rent are astronomical in Framingham. As city councilor, what will you do to address this issue?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important questions facing the city at this moment in time. And I think it is one of the areas where the city council can have some of its largest positive impact. One thing I'm bringing to the city council and will want to do is continue to support strong minimums around the amount of affordable housing that developers have to include in their new developments. So that's one thing I care a lot about. I think there's lots of different avenues that we can pursue. I was really proud and happy to support the accessory dwelling unit ordinance that just got passed by the city council, which I think is another way to allow residents to age in their homes. It's another way to support young and new residents of Framingham to be a part of our community. I'm very interested in investigating what it would look like to support a community affordable housing trust, which a lot of other communities in a lot of other communities with similar demographics have pursued, and I'm thinking of Somerville and Cambridge and other communities like that. And I think, lastly, part of affordability has to do with access to affordable transportation, and so supporting bike paths, supporting bike-friendly roads, and public transit is important.
Thank you. Okay, next question will be starting with Mr. Ward. Do you support a citywide composting service? If so, how will you make it happen?
Yeah, so I mean, the quick answer is yes. Yes, I support a citywide compost program, and finding not only using that, but finding other ways for the city to reduce its trash stream. Costs per ton for trash are skyrocketing. It's really important for the city to find different ways to reduce that. And composting is a great one because it's also helping us be more sustainable and solve some of our climate change, or reach some of our climate change goals. In terms of implementation, I'm open to hearing a couple of different ideas, and I've heard ideas around using a private company that's already supporting that, and I'm blanking on the name. It's maybe there's a composting program already in Framingham. It's Black Compost, or Sean, you'll have to jump in and tell us what the actual name is. I'm blanking on it, but that could be a program that the city could contract with and scale, and could be an easy way for us to start this before we're ready for a citywide program run by our DPW. And I think ultimately a citywide program run by our DPW is where we want to end up. But in the interim, I think the quickest way to bring it to scale might be using a private company that we're contracting out to. So, but yes, I very much support composting.
Thank you. Mr. Silk.
Thank you. So my answer is yes, I do support it. I think it was Black Earth that you were thinking of. That was the so the mayor is actually taking steps to accomplish this right now. He's formed a working group with residents. He's put out a call for it. So if you are interested in this issue, you should please go to the City of Framingham website and join the working group and sign up for it, because I think the sooner we get the feedback from them, the sooner we can take action on it and get this issue rolling. I think we're in good shape to see some progress on it and make it happen. So as long as I think that the recommendation comes back quickly and it's actionable, we can accomplish it on the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Mr. Silk. How will you make sure your community knows you and the work the city council is doing?
Thank you. So this is actually a challenge just in modern day. As a small business owner, one of the things that you always have to think about is how your clients are interacting with social media, how they're interacting with just the mail, how they're interacting with phone calls. So nowadays, everybody has a very personalized way of communicating with the world, and it's important to reach out on all those different levels. The city has a website and is taking a lot of efforts to communicate on many different platforms. I'd like to keep those pathways open and going, and I think I'm going to knock on doors. I'm going to hold community hours in neighborhoods. I'm going to use pen and paper, which is a little outdated, but still my favorite way of communicating with people. And also making sure that language is accessible to everybody, because I know there's a lot of different languages in Framingham. So being able to speak to people, on their level is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward.
Can you quickly repeat the question again?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
How will you make sure your community knows you and the work the city council is doing?
Yeah, I think, thank you. I think this is a really important question, and really at the heart of what it means to be a city councilor, to be not only an advocate, but also a resource to residents in the district and in the community. Obviously, I've had the chance and we've had the chance to really do that work over the last 4 months by knocking on doors. And that's something I've really done a lot of. And I hope to do a lot more in the next 10 days before the election. And that's something I hope to continue. Part of it is being present and active on social media. It's going to community events. And that's something that I've had the chance to do a lot of through my role with Friends of Saxonville. And one that I will continue whether or not I'm elected to the city council, but really look forward to continuing, hopefully as your city councilor. And I think I have a good finger on the pulse of not only what's happening in Saxonville, but also Framingham more broadly through my roles on the Keep Tech School Committee and also on the board of Downtown Framingham Inc. And so I think a couple of really concrete ways that I hope to continue that and continue to grow my knowledge of what citizens are looking for and to be present for them is continuing not only my website, but also developing a monthly newsletter. I've seen a number of city councilors do that and see it be really successful. Also holding regular office hours. And so I plan to be someone who's always people have access to.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Mr. Ward. Voter turnout in the district preliminary election was abysmal. What measures do you support to improve local elections, voter turnout, and voting access in our city? Mr. Ward.
It's a really good question, and one that I think would be helpful for the city to spend a lot of time thinking more about and soliciting some community input, because I think voter turnout is a national problem, and for many it's because of the inconvenience of it, to have to show up at the polls on a Tuesday when people are busy with work and family and school and all kinds of other things. And so what ability Framingham has to not follow those trends, I'm not sure legally, but that's, I think, one of the hugest issues. I think access to mail-in ballots and absentee voting, regardless of the reason, is one really simple and easy way that we can continue to support greater participation. And so I'm glad that post-COVID, that's something that's still that we're still doing a lot of, but I think there are still a lot of hurdles that are unnecessary. And so the fact that, every year you have to reapply for mail-in voting is probably a little excessive to me. And so finding ways that people can vote by mail and not have to go through the process of reapplying for that every year is one easy way that I would support doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Silk, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So voter turnout in the preliminary election was low. Historically, that district has low voter turnout, and also for preliminary elections, they are usually low. So I think all those factors combine to show a low turnout. So I'm hoping that the election day turnout will be a lot higher. The most important thing for me is just having engagement with the citizens, because if a citizen cares about an issue, they're going to show up to vote, and they're going to show up to vote because they agree or they don't agree with it. So, keeping the citizens informed, keeping them engaged from basic issues with the city, because that's really the best way to increase turnout, is just have them care. Also, during the charter review process, one of the things discussed was not even holding preliminary elections and just saving the city money on that end, and just having, multiple candidates on election day. So having voters pick from 3 people instead of just 2. So that's definitely a possibility I'd like to explore when the charter review comes up. I think it's probably a good idea. I think voters are very capable of choosing out of a number of candidates.
15.
And also, I just wanted to echo the accessibility of mail-in ballots. I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Silk. If a parent approached you right now expressing concerns that their family had no food, what would your response be?
Thank you. So my first response would be to connect them to an organization within Framingham that provides food. There's a lot of help out there, so I think it's important. Even if we have to go outside of Framingham, there's a lot of different organizations. I know Daniel's Table has been great. I've donated to them. And there are people out there that will, get you the help you need. I know next to Stapleton, the church there actually has a food pantry that is available. So if you need food, help is out there. So please reach out as fast as you can. So, after connecting them and solving their immediate problem, I would also look in the long term to see how we can help them not get into that situation again. So find out, it's a very custom, I think, solution for families. So figuring out the best way to help them make sure that they can stay out of that situation again is the best thing I can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really horrible situation that I think too many families and members of our community probably or do struggle with every day. And I think we saw that especially during the pandemic, when individuals and students weren't in school to have access to free and reduced lunch. And so I was really excited to see the state pass a universal free lunch for public schools. And so that's something that hopefully at a systemic level will start to address problems like this. For this specific family, I think redirecting them to resources in our community is a really great opportunity. So Daniel's Table, as mentioned, is a really great one. Jewish Family Services does a lot of this work. There are lots of additional food pantries. But one other, I think, thing I would also try to do is think about what are the other wraparound services and programs that we could get, that this family could access to get additional support. And so SMOC is a great resource within our community that really has the lay of the land. And so making sure this family was able to sit down with a program manager at SMOC to investigate, is it the cost of your housing that's getting in the way of access to food? Is it lack of consistent transportation to a job, et cetera, et cetera? Solving some of those problems could be a good long-term solution.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Ward. If elected, how will you help ensure Framingham is meeting state climate benchmarks?
So for me, the two, and probably not for me, for everyone, the two biggest things we can do to address state climate benchmarks is address the two largest reasons we have greenhouse gas emissions. And so that's transportation emissions and that's building emissions. And so for transportation emissions, there's a couple of ways we could approach that. So one is EV charging ports on public property and in public lots, making electric vehicles more affordable and convenient for community members is a really easy way to encourage them to be more likely to buy electric vehicles. Supporting and growing our MWRTA, the Metro West Regional Transit Authority, and other public transit options is another great way. And honestly, us also solving our busing crisis is another way to get parents off the road and more students on buses is a way to reduce some of those emissions. On the building front, building efficiency, so supporting the stretch code and hopefully getting Framingham into the opt-in stretch code is a really good way to increase our building efficiency standards that I would support. Getting more solar panels on public buildings in our schools is another really great way to support this work and to lower building emissions. And I support all of that and look forward to doing that work.
Thank you. Mr. Silk, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay. Thank you. So really, the big challenges for making progress in this area have been money and also apathy. Money that is expensive sometimes to make these changes for businesses and for residents. So providing resources for them so that they can accomplish this and, upgrade their systems and change over to electric vehicles. We need to find ways of giving tax credits out. We also need to find ways of just, making things a little bit easier when they're working through the government system to get this done. And the other big thing is apathy that we need to fight, because I was speaking to a business owner who was offered to put in EV charging stations, and he had come to the point that he doesn't actually think the state is ever going to get to the point of enforcing the emissions that they're setting. So I think it's important that we communicate a strong message that this means a lot to us as a city, and that we really do want to see change in a positive direction on the environment. And we're going to, put our money where our mouth is and make sure that we can get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Mr. Silk. And I'm going to combine two questions that are on the list here. And here, bear with me while I combine them. What specifically will you do to ensure Framingham has a strong, vibrant local business community? And how will you increase job opportunities for your constituents? Mr.
Thank
Silk.
you. Those are two great questions. I'm actually facing this right now as a small business owner myself. We are very much always looking for employees and trying to find the right people for the job. And one of the biggest things you can do is that once you find an employee, you have to make sure that you take care of them and you respect the work that they do for you, and you not only through compensation, but through, workforce flexibility is becoming a bigger and bigger issue for the upcoming workforce. So more and more people want, hours to themselves so that they can take care of their families, they can take care of their personal business. So I think we need to start thinking about how we can do that for city employees. I know it's very difficult for a customer service job to have limited hours because people need things at all hours. So having staffing customer service jobs to the right level means you have a constant availability for that. Taking care of the business community is just making it easy to do business in Framingham. I think that's something we need to do just through reduced regulations and spots. I think we need to, encourage businesses by supporting them locally, having, events where we highlight what businesses are available. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, would you like me to repeat the questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. What specifically will you do to ensure Framingham has a strong, vibrant local business community, and how would you increase job opportunities?
Thank you. So I'm going to cut this question into two parts, and I'll start with how do we support small businesses? I think the biggest key here is cutting through some of the red tape and some of the complicated processes that exist within City Hall, just more broadly, but especially for someone who's operating a small business who doesn't have expertise necessarily in how City Hall or government operates. In many cases in Framingham, these are immigrant businesses who English might also be a second language. And so finding ways for City Hall, for our Economic Development Department, our Permitting Department, to more clearly lay out how small businesses get the appropriate permits and can serve as a resource to them, I think is really important. I'm on the board of Downtown Framingham Inc., which is a local nonprofit, which entire mission is to support that work for downtown businesses. And so where the city can support organizations like that are already in existence in the community, that are run by community members, that directly support small businesses, I think that's really important and powerful. In terms of better job opportunities for our residents, I think continuing to support job training programs and vocational technical education programs for community members, whether they're in high school or not, is really important. And so Keefe Tech just got funding to support more evening training programs for adults in our community. free of charge. So that's a really great opportunity to put people on pathways to jobs that support families.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Ward for the next question. And looking at the time, this will be the last question before we go to closing statements. The question is, the city is proposing a new community center at the site of the former Marion High School. What activities would you like to see there, and how would you make sure your constituents were able to participate in these programs? Mr. Ward.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a really exciting opportunity for the city, and something that's been desperately needed for a really long time. A shared space, and the location is really great in terms of proximity to both the north side of town and South Framingham. And so really excited to see this project go forward. I know investigating whether there's a possibility of having a pool install is one really exciting opportunity, but I'm also really excited to have access to the gym and the basketball courts, to be able to put on art programs and cultural programs, which since the Danforth Museum lost that space, I think is one area that I'd really love to see grow. I know drama productions in the auditorium is something that would be really exciting, and something I would love to see supported. And I think there's a real need for the Callahan Center to be able to expand programming in other venues around the city. And so this would be a really great way to do that. How do people have access to that? Yes, there's a promotion element to it. But one way is providing the transportation to it. And so right now, the MWRTA, in collaboration with the Callahan Center, for example, provides access to rides to and from the Callahan Center, and being able to replicate that model for this community center would be one really great way to ensure that people that don't have access to a car, don't have access to a license, whether that's because they just haven't pursued it, they're too old, they're too young, is one thing I would really support and love to see paired with this new community center. And so I'm really excited to work on that and support it.
Thank you. Mr. Silk, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So I am very excited about the new community center as well. I would like to see the city spread the wealth a little bit with that investment, and also invest in the properties in District 2. The Athenaeum, again, has been sitting unused for a long time, and that's, ready to become a vibrant community meeting place. So I'd really like to see some of our tax dollars being invested in District 2. As far as programs, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Brandon said. And, I think it's important to have, sports and art and, meetings for all different types. Use the community center as much as possible. One of the other things I think is very important for this community center is we did get funding to buy the property and to do the initial work, but the maintenance costs are actually going to be something that the taxpayers of Framingham have to fund. So I think having a good strategic plan for funding the maintenance of that building, and if we want to put a pool or buy a pool somewhere, we have to make sure we have the tax dollars to afford to upkeep it, so we don't have to close it again.
15.
That was one of the problems we had with Keefe Tech, is we had a great pool there that the swim team was using, but then they had to shut it down. So we want to make sure, again, that we have the strategic planning involved to make sure that when we do have this great community center, keep the programs going. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to the closing statements, which will be in reverse order of the opening statements. You will have 1 minute for each closing statement, and we will start with Mr. Silk.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters. I wanted to thank our host, and I also wanted to thank Brandon for tonight, because I think it was a great opportunity for me to express my ideas, and listen to some of the questions gives me a good idea of what concerns the voters in Framingham, and it just gives me a little bit more, my brain, a little bit more attention on the different subjects. So, I just wanted to appreciate it. I want to, again, part of my short time in sales, they taught me you always need to ask for what you want. So I hope that on election day, you come out and vote for me in District 2. And thank you again for listening and being involved in Framingham government.
Thank you. Mr. Ward.
I'll start by echoing all those thanks, and then also thanks to everyone who tuned in tonight, either on the Zoom or via Facebook, YouTube, all those places. Yeah, just for being involved and being engaged and wanting to have a say in what happens in our community and our district. And so thank you for that. I care deeply about this community, and it's because of the values I hold so dearly that Framingham and the world more broadly is a better place when everyone has a seat at the table, when the society and the government we support is inclusive, is welcoming, is equitable. And I want to do that work on the city council. I think I bring a lot of really great professional experience and skills. I talked about some of that from my work at the Harvard Kennedy School, from my current job as the executive director of Leadership Metro West, as well as my work with Keefe Tech. But I think maybe more importantly is the type of person I intend to be on the city council, to be someone who brings a collaborative mindset, who's thoughtful, who's reflective, who's working with everyone in our community to figure out what the middle ground is, and how we best move this city and our community forward. I'm committed to doing that work and to being someone who listens and takes the time to listen thoughtfully to everyone in our community. I think ultimately that's guided because of how I was raised. And so having the chance to grow up in this city, in this community through the public school system, as the older brother to my two younger brothers, mostly raised by my mom, a really strong woman. And so I bring all those assets to the table. And I hope you'll vote for me on November 7th. And regardless of who you're voting for, I just hope you'll vote. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to close this forum by thanking both of the candidates for their participation tonight in our democratic process. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters of Framingham for sponsoring this forum. The recording will be posted on their Facebook and YouTube pages. Remember, polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 7th. The polling location for this election locations are Walsh Middle School and Potter Road Elementary School. You can apply to vote by mail until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st, which is coming up in 2 days.
No Potter Road, just FYI.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's King Elementary.
I'm sorry, what? What did you say?
Voting is Walsh Middle School and King Elementary.
King.
Ooh,
27. So Oaks neighborhood area. If you're by Old Connecticut Path, you're voting at King. And then everybody else is Walsh.
Thank you. I'm glad you caught that. Okay. You can apply to vote by mail until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st. Remember, that's Halloween, so make sure you do that before your kids go trick-or-treating. You can request an absentee ballot in person until 12 noon on Monday, November 6th. You may request an absentee ballot if you will be absent from Framingham on election day, have a physical disability that prevents you from voting at the polling location, and cannot vote at the polls due to a religious belief. Absentee ballots must be received in the town clerk's office by 8 p.m. on November 7th. Encourage your friends, families, and neighbors to vote. If you know someone who needs a ride to the polls, please take them. Thank you. And remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Your vote does make a difference. And good night to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. This is Suze Craighead. I'm the president of the Framingham League of Women Voters, also known as your timer. I want to thank the candidates for having taken the time to prepare, for having been so cooperative with, helping us to set this up. To thank our moderator for an excellent job as always. And in particular, I want to thank Jake Banal, our newly minted attorney and voter chairman, and Jackie Judd, who worked very hard to make sure that this ran as smoothly as possible. And again, thank to all of the people who did stay and logged on. We will have another forum starting in about 10 minutes at 6 o'clock for the District 9 All of you are welcome to stay on, or I believe, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you could probably click off and then log back on again. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you voting. Appreciate it very much. Jake, anything to add?
Not much. If you do want to stick on for the District 9 one, I encourage it. Please do. You don't need to exit or anything. It's the same link, and it'll be the same YouTube Live if you've already shared that with people. So no need to switch, but thank you for everyone who watched this forum, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Is there someone who can answer a quick question for me? The next form has two candidates, Tracy Bryant and Jose. How do I pronounce that last name?
Ferreira.
Ferreira? Okay, all right,
Yes.
thank you. And just to double check that the polling location for District 9 is Harmony Grove Elementary School?
Yes, sorry for the mix-up. That is correct.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm all set then. I will still be here.
Just so you know, you're not muted. If
I see, Tracy, you joined. Thank you. I'm gonna pin you just so you know. You don't have to unmute or anything until we start, but feel free to.
Okay, do I have time to just well, I have 3 minutes. Okay, good.
Yep. All right, it looks like we have both candidates joined, and it's about 6 o'clock, so I'd like to begin.
Okay, thank you. Are we recording?
Yes, we are recording and we are still live on YouTube and Facebook. Everyone, please continue to remain muted and cameras off unless you're one of the candidates or the moderator.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Margaret Copey, convener for the League of Women Voters of Lexington. I am honored to be moderating this candidates forum for Framingham's upcoming general election on District 9 City Council, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Framingham. The League is a nonpartisan organization for women and men, which encourages informed and active participation in government. This candidate forum is part of our ongoing voter educational efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming election. We hope that over the course of this forum, you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for the city of Framingham. This forum is live on Facebook and YouTube. I will now explain procedures for the forum, which each candidate received ahead of time, with one change we had to make due to technical difficulties, and I'll explain that. You will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute for a closing statement, and 90 seconds to answer each question. At the direction of the moderator, there may be a 30-second rebuttal. Opening statements will be done in the order the candidate appears on the ballot. We will alternate which candidate answers the questions, and closing statements will be in the reverse order of opening statements. What has changed since you received the directions is there will be a 15-second verbal warning indicating that you have 15 seconds to finish your answer. Please wrap up when you hear stop. If you continue speaking after stop is said, I will say thank you and move on to the next candidate. Please remember to mute yourself when not speaking and unmute when you speak. Personal references about other candidates are out of order. Please note that we are recording this and will post the unedited recording on our Facebook page and YouTube. With that, now we will go to our opening statements. You have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and we will start with Tracy Bryant. Ms. Bryant.
Good evening. Hi. I just would like to say that I am happy to be here. This is a part of the democratic process that makes America so great and Framingham so great. I am here tonight and I'm running for re-election as the District 9 candidate because I truly believe that I am the best representative, the most qualified for this job, and my commitment has been tested and proven, and I represent all the people in District 9 as well as in Framingham. I believe in inclusiveness, and I believe I have a proven track record, which precedes my time on city council, my election to public office as a city councilor or as a school committee member. I have been in District 9 for approximately 36 years, and I have been utilized in order to bring about improvements and better the lives of my constituents, regardless of creed, color, age, all of those things. I believe I have the skills and a calling to do it. So for me, it is also a joy to help improve the lives. And I want to give back to Framingham as a whole because it is where I started out. I was transplanted to Framingham at 6 years old. I was welcomed into the community by a long-standing town selectman and his family, and the town as a whole. So I have to give back. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate is Jose Ferreira. Mr. Ferreira.
Good evening. How are you all? Thank you for having me here. My name is Jose Ferreira. I've been in Framingham since 1985. The reason me running is I feel personally my community, the immigrant community in this city, I think is being overlooked. We don't see enough of the government of this city, including, everyone who's in charge of us. I was asked to run for this district. Um, and I have to say, when I started, I had doubts of what my responsibilities were going to be by doing this job. But as I started learning about what counselors do, um, I don't see a difference between a counselor and a citizen. And I say, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I can give people around my community a little bit more of what they deserve. We need to have somebody who can communicate with everyone in this city. And this community has become 52% completely of immigrants. 48% of people that lives in Framingham were not even born in this city. And this is who I'm willing to represent, everyone in the south side of Framingham, no matter what nationality you are. But it's easier for me because I'm able to communicate with all of those around me. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the question and answer portion of the forum. You will have 90 seconds to answer each question, and we will be starting with Mr. Ferreira. And the first question is, what are the most important challenges facing your district, and how do you propose to address them? 90 seconds. Mr. Ferreira, did we lose you?
I believe you are on mute.
Mr. Ferreira, could you please unmute yourself?
Like the candidate, I'm stopping the timer. Okay, are you off mute now, Mr. Ferreira?
It looks like he is, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to start your answers now?
Mr. Ferreira, did you hear the question? Well, this seems to be a technical difficulty, and I don't know how to communicate with Mr. Ferreira other than through the Zoom windows here.
I'm going to send him a message on Facebook, but in the meantime, I think maybe we should have Tracy answer the question.
All right, I'll do that. Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
The question, what are the most important challenges facing your district, and how do you propose to address them? You have 90 seconds.
Okay. I feel the greatest challenges facing my district are really survival issues, the environmental health challenges that affect our health, safety, transportation, which leads to employment, greater opportunity for employment. So jobs, safety, neighborhood safety, health challenges, which is directly impinged upon by environmental problems, injustice, right? Those are critical. Traffic affects everything, but I think the most critical, and housing, and then of course education for the children, more accessible, and so those.
Thank you. Has Mr. Ferreira, have you been able to get back up with us? I see, is the president of the Framingham League is with
Yes.
us.
Yeah, this is Susan Craighead. I'm the president of the Framingham League. We are trying to reach him. His name is still appearing in this. It doesn't appear to be muted. I know that Jake, who's the voter services person, is trying to reach him. What I would suggest is, why don't we pause? Let's.
Miss Bryant has her hand up.
Okay.
Did I have any time left on that last question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. I also want to add, I forget it because we're so involved in it. I'm so involved with translation services, ESL services, also senior services. But Framingham is doing a great job at that. And also I'd like to say that I was fluent in Spanish, reading, speaking, able to teach it, and also in French. My skills have dwindled some, but I have a great acumen with languages. So I intend to be fluent in Spanish, French, and Portuguese, as well as other languages. And also, it's not a one-person job. We have one person doesn't represent.
I'll give you 15 seconds just because I
Okay.
stopped the timer.
I deal with the leaders of all the communities, and we're really one big community, but though we have Hispanic leaders who are native speakers, I listen to them. I help observe organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for a second, just apologize for that. I think we may have Mr. Ferreira back on. Mr. Ferreira, can you please respond? Okay, are you muted? Okay.
Mr. Ferreira, can you hear us?
It looks like what I'm seeing is his, it appears that his, the mute sign is going on and off. I'm wondering if there's a problem with your microphone, Mr. Ferreira, or with your camera. Okay, you seem to maybe be there. As soon as, if you can perhaps, can you speak to us? Okay. I'm going to suggest that we take, just take a couple of minutes. It's by my camera at 6:12 right now. Why don't we take 3 minutes? Just everybody, if you sit tight and, you know, we sometimes all have problems with technology. Mr. Ferreira, if you can hear us, we've been trying to reach you through Facebook, which was the contact information you had. If you perhaps could respond to Jake, our voter services person, and let's see if we can get you back on. While Jake and you all are working at that, we do have, the League of Women Voters does have a rule against having a quote unquote empty chair. We've not encountered this before. You know, I would defer to somewhat to the moderator, but I don't know that we can continue the debate if we only have one candidate. The best I could say is we can allow a closing statement and then, you know, perhaps try to reschedule. But, you know, in my understanding, and I don't see that we have anybody else from the state on, my understanding is that we cannot have a debate with only one candidate.
You are correct. That is right. And if he's having technical troubles, that's unfortunate. But I don't see that we can't make an exception because of technical troubles. But one of the things we could possibly do is you guys could reconvene and see if you could find another time to do this. I know how hard that is to do, though.
Yes, and that I
just want to touch in on here. I'm in contact with him. He's having trouble still. I suggest that he exit it and rejoin.
Okay.
That usually solves these problems. I think if we're unable to proceed and unable to reschedule, the alternative I'll do is send each candidate the questions that we had planned to ask and have written answers that we'll then publicize. Obviously not very ideal because then voters don't get to see their candidate's answer on the spot.
Yeah,
right.
So hopefully we can get this going.
Okay, Jake, is it possible that he could call in? You know, I know there are some connections. I don't know if that would be a possibility. Thank you, Kathy McCarthy, for that was going to be my next question, but I appreciate you bringing that up, Kathy. Okay, I'm assuming Jake is working with him. You know, I appreciate your patience. I really don't want to have to cut this short. Tracy, if you don't mind bearing with us for a little bit longer, Why don't we just give them, it's about 6:15 now. Now that we know that Jake is trying to work with him and he does have technical difficulties, do you mind standing by for just a few more minutes?
I don't. I blocked off
I
time
know.
for this. And I'd
No,
rather not do it later as we're coming to the end of the campaign, so I don't mind.
understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do like
Did
that
you guys-
suggestion. Yeah,
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Why don't we, what we've done was we had Tracy, this is Susan Craighead. I'm the president of the Framingham League of Women Voters. We have had Tracy go ahead and answer the question that had been posed to you. We can see you now as well. Why don't we have the moderator repeat the question to you?
yes.
And I will start the timer running when she finishes the question.
Okay, welcome back, Mr. Ferreira.
Thank
The
you.
question is, what are the most important challenges facing your district, and how do you propose to address them? You have 90 seconds.
Well, first of all, as a resident here, as a homeowner here, as a business owner here, we go into the challenges of, first of all, our kids. Parents have to spend countless time waiting for their kids to come up from the north side of Framingham where we can have a school in the south side a little closer to them. Transportation, that is something that we're not going to be able to fix because the city is just getting bigger. But there's certain things we can do. For instance, all our neighborhood are filled up with commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles should not be on the street in residential areas. The crime, the public intoxication. We have to do something with people, the company who attracts all these people into this neighborhood and not do anything about it. Robbery has gone up, breaking into people's houses, the trash around this neighborhood. There's so many things that have to be attend to. But the problem is that we haven't, that I see there's so much going in all the sides of the city and not enough in our side. I'm not sure exactly how to fix this, but the one thing I know I can do is I can get together the people that lives in this neighborhood are immigrants, someone they can trust, one of them. And that's just my point of view.
15 seconds.
It is very hard to trust someone who doesn't understand your language. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferreira. We're going to go to the next question, and we will start with you, Mr. Ferreira, for the next question, which is, for years, Framingham's bodies of water have been declared unsafe to swim in. How will you address this issue and ensure residents have access to clean water?
Well, first of all, I have absolutely no idea how to do this. I think I'd be lying. I'm being honest. I'd be lying to you if I sit over here and say to do something that I'm not capable of responding honestly. I think we have to trust our government and whatever it is they're doing. We have to find the cost of it and try to address it. But at this point, I can just tell you that it is, I don't remember years back in the mid 80s, early 90s, having this problem. So this problem has to become something recent. Something happened recently that is causing this problem, because I don't remember as a child in this neighborhood having the problems that we're having right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
For years, Framingham's bodies of water have been declared unsafe to swim in. How will you address this issue and ensure residents have access to clean water? 90 seconds.
Thank you. I'm glad this issue is raised. We already are working on that. We have the Conservation Committee. We have our environmental, our sustainability person. It's first putting it forward, researching it, bringing it to the attention, and it's already been raised. And the City Council has already, the Ordinance Subcommittee, we've already undertaken one measure to start having the city address it. And there will be more. We've put it on our docket to further take up more measures to start cleaning up, setting aside funds or whatever is necessary to be done to start cleaning up the bodies of water, and also to act in concord with surrounding towns and cities, because the bodies of water are interactive. So if something is happening over here, it's also going to affect their water and vice versa. And this is throughout the community of Framingham, not one particular neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will start with Ms. Bryant. The question is, what is the first issue you plan to address if elected, and how will you do it? 90 seconds.
Well, again, we have a lot of issues to address. So I never pick just one. I think that I can multitask. So there are many issues to be addressed. And there's things that I'm already working on. And I say we a lot because it is a collective effort. I will continue with Mary Dennison, and let's get some more times and dates in place, checkpoints. And then also General Chemical, I will be checking with the environmental Department of Environmental Protection to see where we're at with money for phase 2 cleanup and that time docket, right? I also will be looking into programs for transportation, like the geothermal one we have for energy in Framingham. I'd like to get Framingham, involved at the early stages on the cutting edge at whatever the state is doing, so that when there's time for funding and whatnot, that will be done. Oh, but also in terms of the downtown Framingham area, again, I've already been, I made suggestions at the last meeting with police. Crime, well, I won't say crime just over, but I'll
15.
But I've worked with the police, and I will continue to do so, especially in the downtown area, to keep the businesses and the residents safer down there.
Thank you. Mr. Ferreira, what is the first issue you plan to address if elected, and how will you do it?
Hi. The first issue I have a problem with is downtown Framingham. We keep talking about bringing business into Framingham, when our downtown area, it is completely forgotten. Business owners, restaurants owners that I've been talking to, they have issues with public intoxication, people on drug addicts, literally people on drugs going to the bathrooms in front and the back of the stores. We cannot attract any more business to this city unless we clean downtown Framingham. The reason and the way I think we should address it is we need to talk to the biggest company in this city, which is Smokehouse. They are responsible. They are the one who are housing these people in downtown Framingham. Talking to one of the owners in downtown Framingham, a couple of business owners, they are trying to buy the building in downtown Framingham so they can actually relocate the situation that they're going through. They really cannot run a business. They about had it. I keep hearing this over and over. They were the one, and I'll say here publicly, they were the one who asked me to get involved to try to help them out, because they don't feel, they feel neglected. They feel people don't care about what
15.
happens. It is more important sometimes these people than their business, and they are the backbone of this city, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Mr. Ferreira. A full review of Framingham City Charter is underway. What is the one thing you would like to change about the current charter?
I am not sure. I'm going to be honest, and that is a subject that I need to look into a little more. And I think I'm going to. I don't want to answer this question if it's okay with you guys. Thank you.
That's perfectly fine. Ms. Bryant, you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, even though I heard you, but go ahead.
Sure. A full review of Framingham City Charter is underway. What is the one thing you would like to change about the current charter?
You know what? I have reviewed the charter, and I have been on, committees for that. And I did, at the time, I had several things, but it's on the spot. Let me think. The one thing I would change about it, the very one thing. And I always said, I'm going to make these suggestions when it comes up to change them. But it's eluding me right at the very moment. But let me just think if I can think of one thing I would change about. I guess I would make sure that it's more accessible, and that, we are working so that it will be in multiple languages, in any language. So that's done. But there are some pieces in there that I feel could be easier for the public to understand. So making some language for especially people who are new business owners or that type of thing, small business owners, to make the language around zoning and planning a little bit more natural for the general public to understand and not so isolated to people in that industry.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Ms. Bryant. Housing prices and rent are astronomical in Framingham. As city councilor, what will you do to address this issue?
Well, I have already begun. I've stated that I said the word affordable, the new standard for affordable is not affordable for people that need affordable housing. It is not affordable at all. But this isn't just it really isn't. It's an issue that needs to be addressed at the state level and the national level too. But also in terms of housing, there is a crisis, and there's a crisis in Framingham. But there are agencies at work, and also we have to marshal the people also. One, the standard of housing that a lot of people are living in now is substandard. We need to work on that. And also, there needs to be conversation with the owners of large apartment buildings and small apartment buildings and with the city. And I believe that the mayor, his administration will be doing that, and I will be pushing for that, and the city council will be watching that. That is one of the key things that I have talked to people who are on the front line, working to keep people housed, working to get them housed. And I myself also have worked with SMOC before and other agencies
15.
to help people get housing and to stay housed.
Thank you. Mr. Ferreira, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
So the amount of buildings being built in this city are astronomical. That's the first thing. They are the one who are helping the economy of the city to increase the prices. Ourselves, people that have homes already here in the city of Framingham, are basing ourselves to charge rent according to what we see everybody else is doing it. And I think that's unfair. In my case, personally, my rent is normal. My tenant's been with me for more than 6-7 years. But from what I understand, the state is the one who mandate the minimum at a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom or 1-bedroom apartment that can be charged in the city of Framingham. So this doesn't come from our city. It comes from the state. However, I think the people that already own houses and buildings, 2 families or 3 families in Framingham, are taking advantage of the situation. I think the one thing we can do is understanding that when they come here and build a building with apartment building, we should be able to put a tab on how much they can charge rather than say, go ahead and charge what you feel like it. We have to have some say in what we bring into the city. That would be the way I would probably address it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mr. Ferreira. Question is, do you support a citywide composting service? If so, how will you make it happen?
Oof. That's a good question. I'm not sure how to make it happen. I'm definitely up for it. I'm currently running one of the Pratt Street Garden here in Framingham, and practically this is something that I have absolutely no knowledge on. I know what I use for my flowers, for my gardens, and it's a delicate subject. I had a friend of ours mentioned this to us in a meeting the other day, and I told her I'm not sure how the city is planning to do this, because as it is right now, we are completely, I would say, overload with a situation. There are not enough employees to create more jobs in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant, would you like me to repeat the question?
No need. I am wholly in favor of a citywide composting program, but I know that it can't be done overnight, right? We want it yesterday, and I wish it could have been yesterday, but it's complicated. But again, if we commit to it, we can do it. That'll be a big boon, and it's just very good. My frustration, but I take it as a challenge, is for those who live in apartment buildings and private, property that the city will not be picking up, composting will not cover. We need to get that included, find ways or teach ways. And we have people who are working toward that, but it's new, it's fresh, so that even whether you live in an apartment building or wherever, that composting becomes a part of our normal way of life and our practices. So yes, I'm wholly in favor of it. I know we're going to get there, and we're starting. And anything, I've already worked with a woman who does community gardens and whatnot. Talk to her. We will be doing education individually, but across the city in terms of the city's.
15.
Yes, it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Next question, we'll be starting with Ms. Bryant. And the question is, how will you make sure your community knows you and the work the city council is doing?
Well, with my constituents, my district, they're very busy. Their lives, they have a lot to do. They don't have a lot of free time. As Ms. Ferrer said, a lot of people are immigrants, but not all the district is immigrants. We have a heavy senior population also. We have a lot of people who've been here a couple generations, and children, and some people have been here, almost forever. But you talk to them, they get to know you. Primarily, my years in the district involved in advocacy and activism and supporting organizations that help people, and just being involved with organizations has given me that open door to communities of all languages, frankly. And so I would spread the word, and we can meet, we can have events. We have like the Pelham Lifelong Learning Center. We have Hoops and Homework. We have the churches. We have, we have at Arlington Park, we have the library. We have a lot of facilities that can help spread the word, right? Whether it's me talking, PSAs also, we just,
15.
I do it already, but we can always increase it. Right? Increase spreading the word about what's going on, that's being done.
Thank you. Mr. Ferreira, would you like me to repeat the question?
Could you please?
Yeah. How will you make sure your community knows you and the work the city council is doing?
Okay. Thank you. Well, one of the things that I think I'm the most devoted to is to my neighbors. In my community, the community that we live in, practically everyone in the city has to get involved in every single subject that happens in your district. I think that bringing up the situation in their own language to the people that surrounds you could be a great way to start. There is sometimes when I ask some of my friends to watch the city council meeting, they say, well, I don't speak English, or they're Brazilians, they're Spanish, they're different nationalities, so it's a little hard. We need to start finding a way to arrange that they can understand what's going on around them, because in reality every council is there to serve them. So they need to understand that they're there to help them out, but sometimes they're not able to reach them because the language variance. And this is how I want to try to get them together, be able to get them together, to work together, so we can do something. Because we cannot leave the work just for the counselors.
No.
A team has to be a teamwork. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with you, Mr. Ferreira. Voter turnout in the district preliminary election was abysmal. What measures do you support to improve local elections, voter turnout, and voting access in our city?
Okay. So in the last elections, what I see is people don't really care. This is why they don't go vote. They don't vote because they think the person that they are selecting or will be representing them is not going to do anything but play politics games. And this is something that is a little, I have seen it happen with some of my friends. I've asked them, hey, do you vote? I'm like, why voting? Why go vote for someone who has never come to knock on my door? Why come why do this? So I think we have to give them something that have been either taken away or something that they need and understanding service in their community. So they're able to get interested in knowing that the person that they're going to select to represent them will be able to take care of the issues that are going on around their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant, would you like me to repeat the question?
I would.
Voter turnout in the district preliminary election was abysmal. What measures do you support to improve local elections, voter turnout, and voting access in our city?
Well, some measures I definitely support is like the Democratic Committee, they want to call and discuss, tell people, remind them that there will be an election and answer any questions to the residents and remind them. And that's very important. That's very, very important. Again, people have very, very busy lives nowadays. And so making time, as Michelle Obama said, making a plan, making it easier for them to vote. And even at the state level, I would challenge the redistricting to not disenfranchise people by making them the people who that have the least transportation have to go further to go vote, right? You need to make it more accessible in that sense. But also, you get out there and you talk to the people. But I can tell you, like for the preliminary election that just happened, I did, and we had plenty of people. We went out, we talked to people. I put reminders on the doors the night before also, but the weather was a factor, right? Also you have seniors who it's part of their identity, but they can no longer do it without assistance from a family member. So that cut out a big portion of the voters. The younger generation needs to be inspired as to what it means to vote. We need a lot of education.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant, we'll start with you on the next one. If a parent approached you right now expressing concerns that their family had no food, what would your response be?
My response would be, okay, let's do an intake. I am a deacon at my church. We do an intake. So intake committee, I am often asked because I've handled that type of thing. So I would do the intake, and I have done it and gotten people food immediately, right? And if the person speaks a language, there are apps where we can translate. I've had to do that before. I also know people who are Brazilian native speakers who will also translate. So I would act immediately, basically. And there are also, I am in touch with and know people that run programs like that, but I would probably take their information, and as long as it was a valid request, which 90% of the time it is, 99, I would get them a food gift card. I've even taken people to the store if they needed it right away, that type of thing. So I would act immediately. Food is survival.
Thank you. Mr. Ferreira, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, that's really very interesting question for me. Well, I have run into this problem in the past, and the first thing you do is say, okay, so do you have food in your house for today? No, I don't. So we'll find a way to get them food for the day, find the places where they can obtain food at 3 or 4 different churches and food service in the city. But my second question for them will be, how come you don't have income to buy food? Do you need a job? I mean, we just cannot be providing this is the one problem we have in this community. We need to stop providing and finding out what their needs are for them to survive for themselves. I've been in this country for 39 years. I've never been out of work for more than 2 weeks. So someone who comes to me and say to me, I don't have money to buy food, you need to explain to me first of all, why don't you have a job? I mean, it is not within me. I'm going to help as much as I can. I'm going to provide with everything I can. I'm going to find the places where they can get food. I'm going to give them food of my own, but you need to prove me that you want to. This is the greatest economy in the world. We should be able to provide a job for somebody, and we don't fix the road for the person. We need to fix the person for the road. This person needs to be able to provide for themselves food, because it's not going to be around here the whole time. giving them food. They need to provide for themselves. You can find a job here anywhere in this city and this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferreira, we're going to go to the next question, which relates to the conversation we just had with you. How will you increase job opportunities for your constituents?
Well, first of all, the majority of my friends around here are learning how to be self-employed. It's something that, one of the things is that I have teach my friends, my families, that you cannot, in this country, you have to learn how to work for yourself. You cannot always create jobs. You have to be a creator. In a way, myself, I've been self-employed for 28 years. Whoever have worked for me for X amount of time, I always have teaching my job how I do things so they can create their own business and their own jobs. It is impossible for us to literally go out and say, I'm going to create a job. You need to teach people how to become self-employed. This is the American dream. This is how I done it. This is how most of my family, most of my friends are doing it. You just cannot always think about punching a time card. You got to be able to create jobs. And that's the way I look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant, would you want me, should I reach?
Yes, you may
repeat the question. Thank you. How will you increase job opportunities for your constituents?
I would, first of all, economic development, attracting more businesses here. I mean, we don't need another car manufacturer with gas emissions, but there are industries that we can have come. We can try to attract here. There's opportunities somewhere. So attracting more business. The self-employment is great, but everyone can't be self-employed. Someone has to, to create businesses that generate enough income. You have to have some employees. So I would say, and there are people, we have agencies, and our government is very pro, attracting businesses and supporting the businesses. Through COVID, we've supported small businesses, and we have our agencies fully committed to attracting more business and planning and zoning, and Mr. Sarkeesian also. That's always in the forefront of the mind. The goal is to light up Route 9 again with businesses as well, and also just make the downtown fully teeming with small and larger businesses. So you can attract businesses. It takes a minute to get it back on track, but we will do so again. And we plan for it. We're going to plan for it. We're going to have planning and zoning on that. We are, but also the Economic Development Committee will lead the way too.
Okay, Ms. Bryant, the next question. What specifically will you do to ensure Framingham has a strong, vibrant local business community?
Well, what I will do more of what I'm doing, much more, but basically you have to listen and then support. When we speak about, let's say downtown, when we speak about crime, there was some years back a stabbing, right? That of course deters people from coming downtown. But I went down there to ask, and also a lot of loitering and like you said, drinking outside and things like that. I went down there to investigate and to talk to some of the people too, and hopefully, and also to try to get them to see that in the long run, we need to preserve downtown. We need to have some boundaries downtown. I've spoken to some business owners and actually kind of stood shoulder to shoulder with them and the police. And this is at the request too, as well as just before the request of some of their community leaders. And they're grateful for that. And we're going to continue. The police and the mayor, there is a place and plan, but one, you have to assure people, you have to make it safe first. And there is talks, the police started it, but there's continued talks. And I always said there needs to be talks between agencies that house, it's a crowded area, that house indigent people, downtown with the businesses, and we have to make some clear boundaries so the business isn't interrupted. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferreira, would you like me to repeat the question?
I'm all set. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
First of all, I see a lot of these buildings going up and around the city of Framingham. We have to try to make sure that the first level of those buildings are actually left alone to be businesses rather than parking lots and or social areas. That's the first thing. I mean, if we're going to keep building, might as well bring office buildings. But the biggest problem we have is no one is going to come and open a business in downtown Framingham the way it is. We need to control the situation with Smuckhouse. They are responsible for all the buildings with all the problems. In this very street that I live in, I have an Airbnb, I have a shelter, and I have a Smuckhouse. And we call them the dry house and the wet house. The dry house, no one drinks. The wet house, everybody drinks and passed out and lives on the street. We cannot live like this. We need to take measures and talk to our politicians to make sure we cannot leave the job just to the police. This is a job for every resident in this city to be able to show the city that we cannot live like this. We have so many problems. People are not going to come and open business in this city. Well, we're not helping the business that are already in here. The businesses that are in downtown Framingham, they cannot longer keep doing business the way they are. They are being neglected. No one is paying attention to them. And this is the problem that we have. Let's take care of the business that we have now so we can bring all the business into Framingham. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be the last question before we go to closing statements. And we will start with Mr. Ferreira on this one. If elected, how will you help ensure Framingham is meeting state climate benchmarks?
Well, for one thing is we have one of the things that happens in the summer was that, as you guys all know, now we have more cars coming into the city of Framingham. I think we need to alleviate the situation with the emission by bringing more public transportation to Framingham, the train, the buses. Most of these things can be electric now. I think that that is something that we can start doing. I don't see enough electric car chargers around the city, rarely anywhere besides the mall. I think we have to try to help the city in bringing more electrical equipment, scooters. There's so many things with solar panels. There's so many things we can do to help the environment that we're not doing. We are falling behind the other towns around this city, like Ashland, like Natick, like Needham, Sudbury, Wesley, Weston. All those cities they're going electric and everything. We are not. We're falling behind. It's something that our government needs to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant, would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
If elected, how will you help ensure Framingham is meeting state climate benchmarks?
Well, we do regularly check that. We make sure. And the commitment in Framingham is so great that it really hasn't been a problem. We want to exceed the benchmarks, in fact, right? So we feel a little held back by the state benchmarks. So we're trying to go above and beyond that with solar paneling on the roofs and retrofitting the roofs. We're the geothermal project, right? We're on the cutting edge there. We have a sustainability coordinator. We have a sustainability subcommittee of the city council. We have in the Democratic Committee a sustainability subcommittee. We have the CPA. Framingham opted in to the CPC. They were willing to put their money behind that. So we're going to stay on it. And we also are actively pursuing helping the state to move forward more aggressively also. So we would continue those things. And in terms of the electric charging stations, we do have an electric charging station in District 9, but we could use more. There can be more incentives for electric cars. But first, starting with the city's, the city government's fleet of police cars and other cars.
15.
That would be to start with that. And as I said, first commit to, in terms of building, let's commit to looking for solutions and also getting developers and builders involved with it too, so that they can think of solutions with the environmental regulations in place.
Thank you. We will now move on to closing statements. These are in reverse order of opening statements. You will have 1 minute for your closing statement, and we will start with Mr. Ferreira.
Well, if elected, I just would like to say that, well, first of all, let me start by congratulating Mrs. Bryan. This is not easy. I never thought this would take so much away from our family. I want to take a couple of seconds just to say it is a great deal of responsibility. There are 4 things I will concentrate on if I get elected, and one of them is the school in the South Side, the situation with our crime in our District 9, the traffic situation, and trying to be able to work to see if we can have more affordable apartments, maybe to put a cap on it, because people are just moving out of this city. We can not longer, well, most people can no longer afford the city without the help of a government. But overall, I want to see is, please, regardless who you're going to vote for, go and vote. Go and vote. Do not stay home just because it's a rainy day. Just vote. It is important. No matter who you vote for, just please vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bryant?
Okay, so thank you. I would just like to say that I firmly believe that I do believe in the family of mankind, right? So that we are all brothers and sisters. We are all humanity. Language separates us, and yet it doesn't. I was raised with parents who never let language differences stop them from helping people. There was a large migration of Hispanic-speaking people, and we were newly migrated to Framingham, but and although some people would not rent to them, my parents did. My mother was often bringing people down to get services, get them established. My baby sister's first
15.
What'd she say?
15 seconds.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought we had 2 minutes. Did I use up 2 minutes? Okay.
No, you
Anyway,
had
in terms of my closing statement is that I have served everyone, and probably the Hispanic community the most, because they're the most very populous in my district. I work with community agencies and activists and environment and organizers, and we do serve it. I've been in Arlington Park. I've been at the coffees with immigrants, many of whom can't vote, and yet I serve them anyway. I serve the needs of our seniors.
Yep.
I work with agencies.
Thank you.
I hope to continue. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. I'd like to close this forum by thanking both the candidates for their participation in our democratic process. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters of Framingham for sponsoring this forum. The recording will be posted on our Facebook and YouTube pages. And some notes to remember: polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 7th. The polling location for this election is Harmony Grove Elementary School. You can apply to vote by mail until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st, Halloween. And you can request an absentee ballot in person until 12 noon on Monday, November 6th. You may request an absentee ballot if you will be absent from Framingham on election day, you have a physical disability that prevents you from voting at the polling election, you cannot vote at the polls due to a religious belief. Absentee ballots must be received in the town clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election day, November 7th. Encourage your friends, family, and neighbors to vote. If you know someone who needs a ride to the polls, please take them. And thank you. And remember, democracy is not a spectator sport, and your vote does make a difference. Thank you, and good evening to all.
Okay, and this is Suze Craighead, the president of the Framingham League of Women Voters. I want to thank our moderator. I want to thank our candidates, and most of all, the people who came to listen. Yeah. And we appreciate you having, sat through the little bit of glitches we had. It always happens. And also thank you to Jackie Judd and to Jake Binal, who spent a lot of time getting this together, and Jackie helping us with the Zoom part of it. So we hope that everyone will get out there and vote. And thank you and good evening.
Good evening.
And if any of you haven't already, please join the league so that we can keep putting on events like this. Without membership, it makes it logistically impossible to host. So please do join the league if you're not already, and go vote.
Persist.
Very good. And thank you to the cat.
Oh, yes. George loves Zoom meetings.
I had to shut the dogs out of the room. All right. Good evening.